Hey guys, what's going on? It's Gunnar here. Welcome back to the channel. It's June 25th here. You know, we're getting towards the end of the month, and everybody knows that beans in July are the summer hot ticket when it comes to big mature bucks and feeding in the evening hours. Now, I want to go over a few of my trail camera setups for these summer months here coming up. July, August, September, and then into the season as we progress through the fall. Now, I'm of the thinking pattern that I don't necessarily put my trail cameras out necessarily much earlier than, say, this weekend. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be putting my trail cameras out here this weekend as we're getting into the July months there, because in my case, you can't necessarily tell the specific deer that you're dealing with in May and June. So, but when you get into July, you can start to see the characteristics and you can potentially identify a buck that you might be after here in this fall. I'm not necessarily getting them out real early. I might set a few out for, say, turkey season, but after that, it's pretty much nothing until here the end of June or very early July. And the first thing that I'm focusing on as a strategic location is I'm focusing on bean fields. Like I said earlier in the video, beans in July are the ticket to mature buck activity. The evening food source movement is centered around beans. They're chewing on the leaves and the stems. They're nice and green, very nutrient dense, and bucks love them. So that's the first priority. That's what I'm targeting. Any inside corner, pinch point movement funnel alongside a bean field or around a bean field that I know over the course of the history of hunting areas, I'm focusing on those. I'm focusing on this inside corner in particular. I've got a lot of bedding down here over this knob, and I've got a bean field that's starting to come up and take off here right in front of me just behind the camera. So this is an inside corner that I'm looking to target for mature bucks to come out and feed into this bean field here this summer. A lot of bachelor group activity on this back side of the field here because it's got this hog back, it's got this roll. Topography is the greatest form of cover, and I've got exactly that on this back side of the field right here. So number one is beans. Number two is gonna be alfalfa. Deer love alfalfa or hay fields in general in the summer months. That's a super high priority food source. It's very green, it's nutrient dense, and these deer are pounding it in the summer months. Now I'm targeting alfalfa all the way up into that early mid-October range because it's still retaining a lot of the evening movement because it's staying green. But once you get that first frost, it's starting to die off and it's losing its attraction. But in these summer months and then into early fall, alfalfa for a trail camera setup is another great idea to get a trail camera on some of those fields, some of those pinch points coming into the fields, a neck down, a funnel, anything that necks deer down into a specific area that you could potentially get a photo of them. Now another spot, and this is more of just a strictly summer location, but I'm thinking of one in my head, is over mature canopy timber. Now, these big over mature forests that are cool, a lot of breeze rolling through there, there's not a lot of bugs because there's not a lot of undergrowth. Those are the areas that a lot of these big bucks are gonna be staying in the summer months. They're trying to stay cool, get that breeze. They don't wanna be bothered by bugs. They're not smashing their velvet on nasty low brush. They really enjoy big over mature timber that they can stay cool in. So that's another area that I'm targeting. I'm thinking of an area specifically that I actually hunt in early fall. It's really over mature. There's not a lot of underbrush, but it's got an alfalfa field adjacent to it. And this year it actually has beans as well. So that's gonna be a hot ticket when it comes to my trail camera setups here going into July, August, and then September, and then potentially a little bit into October there. I'm gonna have some high quality sits in the early season because that movement is still gonna be consistent going into the first few weeks of the season. But after, like I said, that first frost, a lot of those deer are gonna be transitioning to other more attractive food sources at that time. But a high quality trail camera location, July, August, September, and then early October there. Alfalfa, over mature timber, we've got beans. Now another's gonna be water. We've got a lot of water holes, most of them pretty close to our food plots here. I've got one here just to my right in this food plot on this inside corner, but we've got another pond roughly 80 yards down here in this little drainage, catching all the drainage off the field. And then I've got another about 250, 300 yards across the field on a perfect rut cruising ridge top setup. So I'm putting cameras on those water holes as well because it's summer. A lot of the times it's pretty dry, This year is kind of an exception. We've gotten very adequate moisture, and it's actually a good thing. We've got a lot of good growth coming with the crops and with the food plots, so I'm not complaining. But focusing on water holes, so on those drought years, make sure you're going in there and you're filling those up, because that's super important. If there's nothing in there, there's nothing attracting those deer. But water holes, super hot ticket when it comes to summer trail camera locations. Really easy location to kind of get a central hub of a lot of deer showing up there and get a good feel for what your ratios are potentially and the bucks in your area. So now last but not least is going to be mock scrapes. I've got a handful of mock scrapes set up around this property that are also going to get cameras just because it's a social hub, right? These deer are targeting these mock scrapes. They're talking and communicating with other deer. A lot of the does, a lot of the fawns are hitting those as well. The bucks are always hitting that mock scrape, seeing what deer are around. They might not necessarily be super aggressive when it comes to establishing territory right now since they're bachelored up, but it's still a communication device. It's like a group chat when it comes to people. Everybody wants to tap in, talk to one another, see who's around. So it's another great spot to have a trail camera set up. But when it comes to those summer trail cameras, I'm not necessarily putting too much weight on what deer I don't have on camera, just because this property in specific is more of a fall time property just because it's got great habitat. It's got great browse, great high stem count cover. It's not that over mature timber that a lot of these deer are gravitating to here in the summer months. This is a more fall geared property. But on those years that we do have beans in the ag field, it does seem like a lot of those bucks, those core bucks that are normally here, do show up a little bit sooner just because that nutrition aspect of having that destination food source on the property. Beans have that longer draw. They're not just strictly attractive when there's virtually nothing else and it's really cold like corn. Beans have that draw from June, July, August, September, and into October, and even later if there's spillover or what have you when it comes to those pods. So think about those things. It's time to get those trail cameras out. A lot of those bucks are starting to get pretty nice, and you might just be able to identify your target buck for this fall.